welcome back to Autodesk Digital Builder Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Thomas. Today, we are coming again live from San Francisco, and I am joined by Andrew Zukoski, the CEO of Join.Build. Today, we're going to talk all about pre-construction, the owner's role in the pre-construction process, technology, a children's book or two, and a whole lot more. So, Andrew, how are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great, Eric. Thanks for having me here.
Yeah, it's going to be a cool conversation. I really enjoyed the first time we met and just started unpacking the layers of the onion as far as what your organization does and how you found your way to construction. And so I'd love it if you could tell me a bit about Join, the mission of your company, and what actually brought you into the AECO industry.
Our mission is to empower every project to be the best that it can be. The construction industry delivers the physical infrastructure for substantially all social and economic activity, just the hospitals, the schools, the roads. Like it's critically important for everything in society. We believe that an abundance in the built environment is a really big deal. And we believe that technology has a big role to play, particularly on the front end of planning and determining like what's going to be built, setting the stage well for the delivery that happens in the field. It's not like the set of problems if you'd asked me 10 years ago or 15 years ago, like, are these problems you'd be working on? I don't think I would have said yes. I fell into construction a little backwards, butt over tea kettle I grew up in the 3D printing world and was working on customized medical devices. It's funny, my first time here in this building was visiting the Autodesk gallery because you had a bunch of the pieces from the company that I worked at.
Nice.
In there. Yeah, it was cool. Went from there to a company that was in AEC, and this was this eye-opening experience for me because it was before the most recent wave of technology investment. There were a lot more doors open. It was a lot easier to get exposure to people and just come to understand the complexity and the importance and the people and the teams that make up AEC. And we fell in love. I met my co-founders through that experience, and we saw opportunities around the gap between a decision maker and information that drives that decision. We observed that every project's unique. I'm not coming down Moses style with stone tablets revealing truth here, right? Everyone knows this, but every project's unique and every owner is this eternal beginner in a way. Not every owner, many owners are new to construction, even if they've done some before, and they have to navigate the unique complexities of their project, and they have to make a lot of decisions along the way that impact their outcome, whether it's the asset that's built and how it serves their business or social need, whether it's the cost, whether it's the schedule. They're doing it without a lot of the information that could really help them. And so we see an opportunity for technology to improve that.
I had a very similar journey into construction myself where I've got a degree in scientific and technical communication, and my first job just happened to be a proposal writer for a general contractor. And I remember when I walked into the room, I didn't know what I didn't know so dramatically in that moment. And I've grown to love it because, to your point earlier, it touches every single person in the world, whether they think about it in those terms or not. And it's really impactful and important. But there's also a lot of really interesting and exciting problems to solve within construction and the way that we serve the people we're building for. And so it's cool that you found your way here. And your point about the eternal beginner really does resonate. Even if an organization is built before, if they built their building or renovated their building 20 years ago or 10 years ago, this isn't necessarily something they think about in a regular, routine way. I have a lot of empathy for folks who go, okay, I need to build a brand new $200 million building, and I've never done that before. Or the last time we thought about that was 35 years ago when the organization was started and we've outgrown it. And there's a lot of change and a lot that's mixed up in there. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about the problems that you see coming from that eternal beginner, equation, especially for the folks that aren't building 2 new buildings every 6 months or expanding rapidly. The stakes are high.
It's really high. The owner often has a couple of internal parts, but an owner is someone who's going to run the project, got a business problem, and either a financial backer or the money to solve that business problem, either with a building or a change to a building. And they understand the market risk that comes with that. If they're a developer, they understand and can reason about leasing a building out and market rates for rents and so forth. If it's an institutional builder, they understand the user group. They can work to make sure that they build and understand those user groups' needs, and then they build something that meets them, right? But on the flip side, the execution of that project is going to take years, maybe decades. Yeah. There are going to be hundreds, if not thousands, of different stakeholders that are going to have to come together to solve the unique problems of the project. And we find that many owners struggle to coordinate all of those different stakeholders, right? It's sort of crazy. You talk about even owners who aren't building 2 buildings a year or something like that. It often comes down actually to the individual, right? We think of owners and contractors as these sort of like big abstract things, but it's actually all about the specific people that are on the team. And so I think of UCSF as a large local healthcare system. They're building a big new prominent campus up on a hill over there, the new Helen Diller Hospital. And we're doing some work with them, and we've gotten to know the project team there. And the project director, I hope I'm getting this right, he explained that his career is going to be 3 projects. And he built a hospital for UCSF, and now he's building this hospital, and there will be one more after that. And then he's going to retire, okay?
Yeah.
And in the process, we'll have had this incredible impact on healthcare in the entire region, if not the world. This is like a leading research institution. But it means that the next hospital, when he encounters a problem, there's a good chance that he could have seen that problem at most twice before in his entire career. And it would have been 10 years ago and 20 years ago, and who knows how much has changed. And so there's just owners have to rely on specialist stakeholders. They have to rely on their design partners. They have to rely on their construction partners to get from business problem to building. And it's really challenging. Yeah.
I mean, even just the technology changes over the course of that person's career. I mean, the iPad sitting in my lap right now plays a big factor in how folks deploy and work out in the field. And just, I have tremendous empathy for the people who are trying to do the best for the businesses they serve, whether it's in healthcare or any other industry. I love that example. It makes it really obvious as far as, okay, like how can we better help these folks to be successful, and how can they be more effective in implementing and deploying technology? So there's a lot that goes into it. And I'd be curious to hear a bit more about the pre-construction decisions you've seen that make the biggest impact on the projects down the line. Where should folks be focusing their attention?
Upfront planning goes a really long way. The trick is, for good upfront planning, you need to involve a wide number of stakeholders. And what I'm saying is a little bit mom and apple pie, right? Like, everybody wants to be in early. Everybody's got things to bring to the table. The challenge here is, right, I'm bringing in a builder, I'm bringing in an architect, I'm bringing in engineers, I'm bringing in like major trades early in the design process, early in pre-construction. The challenge is these people have never worked together before. And there's a baseline assumption of an adversarial relationship that permeates not all of, but a lot of the industry. And so the most impactful decisions that we've seen are actually around the level of trust and transparency that the owner both demands and sets early on. And that if the owner can instigate a real one-team attitude, it has these repercussions that flow long past the early planning stages all the way out to the site. One of the early projects that we were on was YouTube's new headquarters, or they expanded their headquarters down the peninsula here, and it's this beautiful building. It's all mass timber. It's this gorgeous thing to be in. It's this really high caliber building that was built, and it was also built in the middle of COVID, right? And so they had
an extra set of problems there.
Extra set of problems, and it had been in the development entitlements had happened 10 years ago, and so they were going to expire if they didn't get this thing 50% built by like December 2020 or something like that. I'm forgetting the details, but it was like built under a lot of pressure. But the thing that's jumped out for me, we were obviously involved relatively early in that project, but we got to go, visit the site a few times as construction was wrapping up. And the thing that struck me was talking to people who were on site. They got really emotional talking about this project ending. It was part of this pattern that we've seen where if you ask people about, like, hey, what was your favorite project? Like, what was your favorite project in industry that you worked on? It's very rarely something about the building, actually. It's almost always about the dynamics of that cross-functional team, that multi-stakeholder team.
Honestly, that doesn't surprise me. I'd love to hear your thoughts on why that might be.
Yeah, I think it's because you have to, this group of people you're going to wake up and go work with every day for weeks and months and years in some cases. I mean, we've all had times in our professional careers where it's been stressful or it's been adversarial with someone, or you're like dreading something, or you had like a bad meeting or a series of bad meetings and something didn't go well, and like you took that energy home to like your family. It sucks. It sucks. It sucks to live that way. Like, fundamentally, we're people. People build buildings, and people are social creatures, and you want to work together. It's just way more fun to work together on problems than to fight each other through it. And so coming back to the most important decisions, like the one that wins is having this one team attitude early, because if you can set that, and it has to be set early, every new stakeholder onboards that way. And so even if everyone who was there in design and planning has rolled off the project, like all the trade partners on site are rolling up that way, and they're gonna deliver, and they're gonna have the best time of their lives, and you're gonna have a fantastic result as an owner.
And it's so strategic, and you have to be very intentional to make that and create that environment, because it doesn't happen by accident generally. And I think we can always do better by the people that we work with. I don't love when I hear people talking about like work as a family. That always feels a little odd to me. But the relationships you build at work really last, and people do really care about this industry, and they care about the people they work with. And I think that really resonates. And I think it makes a lot of sense that folks aren't going, the best moment in my career was this building. It was the best part of my career was when I worked with this incredible team and we came together and did something wonderful.
Yeah.
And I think that framing is really important.
Yeah, but it's really hard to set up those dynamics, right? Yeah. It's not a team that's been carefully built over years of like adding and removing people until you've got this gelled group. It's a team that didn't know each other, got thrown together in a room, probably has to, on day one, deliver a bunch of bad news to an owner about their expectations and what's actually possible in the project, probably has conflicting goals between the different team members, like, and somehow has to also design and build a building. Like, the buildings are fundamentally complex themselves. That building we were in YouTube headquarters, I remember this really struck me. We we're touring, like, there's, I think it was like 600,000 like rivets in here, or no, 600,000 nails holding together all the like CLT panels. And I was like, oh wait, I've heard a number like that before. And it was at the Boeing factory, and it was the number of parts in a 737. A given office building, a given apartment building is as complex as a jetliner, but it's only built once. And somehow this team has to come together and not only deal with that complexity, but provide the like transparency and authenticity to their stakeholders and teammates that like get everybody aligned and working together on those problems. So,
and it's often 20 or 30 or 40 different companies who are coming together into this team as well, which
those are rookie numbers.
Yeah, like it's crazy how complex and how we have to be able to coordinate and communicate so much technical information in what feels like ever shortening schedules as time kind of moves forward. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on the tech curve that kind of comes behind these folks who are kind of struggling through the eternal beginner problem. Like, how do you ensure that they're aligning to best practices and adopting the right technology on their projects over time?
Pattern we see is they rely on their stakeholders and partners to introduce them, and then they're able to drive that into future projects. They get exposed to some technology through a service provider who shows up and utilizes it in a way that they see, and then they pick it up and run with it in the future. But it's tricky, right? It's the problems of running the project are not that different from the problems of the building. The owner might not understand what a good pre-construction process looks like. They may not understand why it's necessary to coordinate design deliverables and the specific information that's going to be in a given design deliverable with a procurement schedule. I mean, frankly, this is one of the things that we think Join really helps with, is that a lot of the work on the front end is invisible. I don't want to say that people in the field have life easy, but at least in terms of making visible progress, it's easier because the building comes out of the ground and you can physically see it and you can touch it and you can see all the activity that's happening.
It's a lot easier to go look at what we did today and the scope changed from yesterday. That's very easy to navigate.
Yeah, you made us move this from here to here. Like, yes, it took some time to move this thing, but in pre-construction and design, it's a spreadsheet no matter what. And like, okay, what's different about it? And so being able to have a system that holds the whole process, everything that's going to happen for the owner from, hey, let's go design and build this thing, through final GMP or through like substantially being out in the field, means that the stakeholders don't have to carry that information in. Like, if you come to cost is a really big deal throughout this. The sort of pattern of the industry is really challenging because very often cost is reactive to design. And it means that the owner is designing, the designer is designing, and then the builder typically holds cost and has to come in and explain why they can't have the thing that they want. It means on these lengthy pre-construction processes, it means you're delivering bad news like every week.
Yeah.
And you still need the owner to make decisions. I got to tell you some really bad news, and I need you to make decisions so that we can nail down the equipment that's going to be on the roof, so we can figure out the steel member lengths we're going to have, so we can hit the mill order date, because if we don't, it's going to have a big cost impact to the project. And so having a system that holds that takes some of the pressure off the individual walking in to have to be the bearer of bad news. It becomes something everyone can collaborate around.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you've got this visible amount of data and information. I wouldn't say you're shifting blame, but you're making that transparency a lot easier to see and follow and have a conversation about, instead of being more tied to that particular person and the information that they happen to be sharing in that moment.
We talk about accountability. It turns into like really natural mutual accountability, right? Because the owner is a critical member of the team. The team doesn't just work for the owner, even in the most adversarial of design, bid, build projects. No, the owner has a lot that they have to bring to the table, and there's a lot that's relying on them and making sure that they understand the consequences of delaying a decision or the consequences of changing their mind about something. That's a really important thing, that you can bring that accountability both ways. If you got accountability, you got transparency, and you got trust, you're well on the way to having a good time.
I like it. So if you could wave a magic wand and change something about the broader pre-construction process based on everything we've talked about so far, what would you change?
I think it's going to sound a little cheesy, but
I like cheesy.
Yeah, I would get owners to spend a lot more money in pre-con. There are reasons that it's hard for like a developer, but especially an institutional builder. Pre-con and design is not the time to be penny wise and pound foolish. Understanding the value of it and attributing value to it and paying for it means that it's much easier for builders and their trade partners to bring to the table their best team and deliver like a really excellent pre-construction process. It's just a really big difference between a week of VE after 100% CDs and like a really engaged and proactive pre-con partner from the first step. And I think if owners understood that and saw the difference it made in project outcomes, it would be really good for them and all the stakeholders on the team.
The term I've heard come up in this context before is free con.
Oh gosh.
And I could see why that carries kind of a negative vibe to it. The more that we can be intentional in compensating folks in the moment for the pre-construction and the work they're doing, but also be very strategic in the amount of work that goes in at that stage, I think everybody's going to feel a lot better about what happens out on site. I think it's going to reduce rework. I think it's going to make people feel a lot more confident in what's coming. And our delivery methods have changed quite dramatically in the last 10 to 20 years. We see a lot more design build. We see a lot more integrated project delivery versus the more traditional design bid build, which, okay, that might feel better in that we have a fully completed set of plans and it's all done.
Sure.
But that doesn't necessarily equate to a schedule duration anybody feels good about. And you're not necessarily bringing the people into the decisions and conversation in a way that is appropriate for the expectations I think owners and builders have today in the broader process of construction.
Yeah, I think you're touching on what we view as the most important change that's happening in the construction industry right now, which is the shift in project delivery method to emphasize design build, CM at risk. There's a segment of the market that's doing IPD as well. It's small but growing.
Yep.
In these methods, you have the contractual foundations to turn down the heat. It can be slightly less adversarial. You still have to show up and work well. And you have the opportunity to involve the builders much earlier. Yeah. And so the idea that you can have a design that's completely ready to build, delivered by people who are not going to be responsible for building it and whose primary skill set is not building or delivering work on site is a little suspect, right? You really need expertise around constructability and expertise around planning and expertise around cost in the room to guide that design, or you're going to have to redo a substantial fraction of it once those people do get involved. And so bring them in earlier is way better. We see it varies a little bit by sort of geographic area and to a certain extent sector in the markets that we serve. But to a large extent, general contractors don't do free con as much anymore. I think the change that we're still really looking to have happen is for the trade partners to be brought in and paid for pre-con as well.
Yeah.
Like they struggle even more. They tend to be even more thinly staffed on the front end of projects. It's just a lot harder for them to staff and show up in a way that's impactful if they have low guarantee of actually winning the work and they're not recouping the costs as they go.
Oh, absolutely. It's a complex problem as far as when you bring folks in and how you facilitate those conversations. So I have empathy with folks who are trying to more effectively navigate that. Some of the technology that is out in play now helps facilitate those conversations. And it just feels bad when you get out on site and, you know, your steel detailer walks in or your HVAC contractor or whoever you might be talking to, and they look around and they go, we can't build it in the way that's in the plans right now. Well, it's too late to be having that conversation. And now that conversation costs money and time.
Yeah.
Most people who listen to Digital Builder regularly know that I was a proposal manager for a really long time for a couple general contractors. There's some PTSD that comes from that, to be completely honest. And so I obviously have some really strong thoughts about RFPs or requests for proposals, especially ones that are not written well. I'd love to hear your thoughts on RFPs more broadly and the opportunity that this brings owners, especially at that point in the overall construction process.
Yeah, I mean, the RFP is like it's the opening salvo, our first brick in the wall. One of the changes that our partners in the industry articulate to us is happening with the shift in delivery method is really the shift from bidding a project to pursuing a project. It's a shift from like, well, we get 100% CDs, we put a number down, we win 1 and 3, and then it's off to the ops team, to this much more involved process of trying to understand the owner, potentially well in advance of the RFP, understand their business that you can see through the RFP, right? Because who knows if they're articulating their actual needs, right? The person who writes the RFP is often someone who's going to be tasked with running the project, but they don't necessarily represent the end user or the actual business driver. They're someone who's going to execute the project from the owner's side, but they may not have a complete picture themselves. They might not be able to put it in the RFP of like what the actual business needs and priorities are. And so deeply understanding that going into the RFP and then being able to pull it together and then articulate it back. This is one of the areas surprised me a bit when this started to happen, but now it's everywhere. Our technology gets used a lot in that RFP presentation. It's this really key interaction. You've got a panel of people and you've got 3 to 5 shortlisted teams are going to come in and they get an hour to say, here's why you should choose me.
And they're intense. Like that's an intense moment.
It's planned minute by minute. Like we've been asked to like help with some of this, and it's like, oh boy, wow, there's 10 executives from like the builder here on this call talking about which moment happens when and who says what. Yeah, they're really intense, but it's because there's so much that has to be conveyed in that time. It sets the stage for so much that comes. You have to share some picture of cost, and that's going to anchor in the owner's brain, like the number that gets shared, even though if it's early on in the project, like it might be questionable whether or not there's enough detail in the project to put a number to at all. And so you have to be able to share not only your picture and understanding of the project, which is much more than a number. It's not a well-defined scope. It's like, hey, here are the assumptions that you mentioned. We think you're carrying these assumptions. We think you should consider these alternates as ways to save money. Here's where it's trending. Here's our understanding. Here's how we would progress the design and construction schedule. And along the way, if you're using Join, you get to say, and here's the experience you would have, because you'd have transparency into all this. And so that's how we see people trying to bring a huge amount of information to these RFP responses, because ideally, I don't think you're responding to the RFP. You're responding to a lot of information that you have about the client that's been built up leading up to the RFP.
There should be. Yeah. I think if you're just responding to RFPs blindly that show up in your inbox without any context on the owner or company that you're bidding on for, you're behind the curve by default as you kind of get into that process. And there's a lot of work that goes into building the relationship, especially for owners who don't build all the time. There's a great opportunity to work with the general contractors in advance of issuing the RFP to help them understand, okay, what should I be asking for? Because what better informer of that conversation than the one that might potentially be out there building what you're actually doing? And so there's a lot of legwork, and that's a complex process to navigate, especially if you're a very large company and you're chasing a lot of RFPs all at the same time.
How do you just keep track of it?
Yeah. But I think coming in cold puts you at an immediate disadvantage because there's so much nuance and there's so much tied into that relationship that might last for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years, depending on that project.
Warranty period.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then if that goes well, you might get sole sourced for more projects in the future. You might get to skip that RFP process. And what a win that is, because you don't have to build up the relationships. You don't have to learn the tech stack for that particular owner. Everything's already in place. And so there's a lot to be said as the projects kind of navigate and come to fruition from the RFP stage into actual construction.
One of the trends we're watching in the industry is general contractors taking on more and more self-perform capabilities, right? And that's like a lot in the field, a lot around equipment around toll, a lot around financial mechanisms. Some general contractors, not all, are also self-performing more and more design and engineering services.
Really?
Yeah, some are just leaning into hiring design managers because there's so much more that you need in these like tightly integrated like pre-construction processes. And, design team works for you. It's a lot easier to orient them to design around a way that the information can be directly consumed by construction than around, say, the AIA's progression and guidance around sort of progression of design from SD to DD to CD. I hear about this and I'm asking like, oh, okay, so that makes sense. Like you want a better partner there. And so you're hiring architects to produce drawings and like do conceptual design and so forth. And they're like, no, actually, the most impactful one that we've seen has been that we're hiring design professionals and we're engaging at the master planning and the pre-planning phase with owners before they've actually hired even a design architect, let alone an architect of record.
Wow.
Because that allows us to do is, one, we're there early, But the key thing that it lets us do is guide the owner around delivery method and around the contract that they're going to have with the design partner, right? And so you're able to set the stage in a way where no matter what the design is, the party is going to better set up to work together well, and the parts and pieces that everybody brings to the table are going to click together like with a lot less friction. So I was like, I was cool. I learned a thing.
I like that. And I knew that the self-perform conversation was really spinning up with more of the traditional trade partners because of the crazy volatile nature of the labor market right now in construction. Being able to control and own that portion of your scope more effectively reduces risk and obviously means that you get to continue staffing your projects and not being so beholden to whatever particular trade partner is available or not for that project. But it's really cool to see that that is extending into the design conversation as well. I didn't realize that we had touched that point. So I appreciate you sharing that with me. I'd like to hear a little bit more about the role of relationships between each key player across the life of construction. So the owners, the architects, the contractors. What do you think is going to change in the near or distant future as these relationships continue progressing?
Owners are getting increasingly sophisticated, and it seems like AI is actually accelerating this. I don't know how to call myself an AI skeptic. I use it every day, but like I'm not totally red-pilled, shall we say. But owners are increasingly sophisticated. The rise of technology, AI and otherwise, is bringing a lot more transparency and knowledge availability to that stakeholder. It's much easier for them to understand the optionality that's out there. It's much easier for them to access data, their own or other people's, to compare to on a particular project. They're just much more sophisticated than they used to be. And I think that's great. I think that it means that it's much harder to build a profitable business based on asymmetric information or intermediation of information. It's actually the business has to be built around delivering value to that stakeholder in a way that that stakeholder can't. They might not have the skills. They might not have the ability to deliver work on site. The hospital system definitely isn't staffed up with like a concrete unit, or maybe there's some out there that are, but I haven't met any of them. And so a sophisticated owner is able to better drive towards their goals, which are all of our goals, right? We all depend on the built environment. And it means that people who deliver value aligned with that are going to build better and better businesses. And so that's on the owner side. The design side, I think the design side is squeezed right now. I think a lot of these businesses are built around the assumption that the designer is the preferred partner of the owner. I don't know that AIA has done any favors here to the design profession. And so I think that there are going to be as many or more architects and engineers working, but I think frankly a lot more of them are going to work for general contractors, because I think the builder fundamentally can deliver what the owner wants. The owner doesn't want to design. They got a business problem and they have money. They want to turn that into a building or a change to a building to meet that business problem. And everything in between is just a necessary evil. It's just like an unfortunate step that they have to go through to deliver it. Like what they want is a building. And as general contractors expand their businesses to be able to deliver more and more of it, and you see more and more of this with Design.Build or even with CM at Risk, I think they're going to in-house more and more of these services. Not all of them, but the ones that let them control risk. The other one that's very interesting about bringing more and more of this inside is that you're able to stack margin. Right. Yeah. And so the CM fees are getting compressed. Some might say they're going to zero. And yet general contractor businesses are still running great. Right. And it's because through these other business lines, you're able to deliver enough profitability to the business that, you can run a good business. And so I would expect that trend to continue.
It does make sense. And I'm encouraged to hear that the owners in particular are getting a bit more savvy and technical as the landscape evolves. Makes sense that AI is playing a role there. And my perception of the technology is evolving every day because I think every day in the news we hear a new development that changes the entire landscape. I think it's an equally exciting and slightly terrifying moment in the grand scope of how we interact and use technology. But I think it's going to unlock a lot of doors as these tools become more robust and more established. In construction in particular, it's just a more complicated problem to solve with artificial intelligence. And I'm really encouraged to see where folks are going. And I'm hearing more and more every day, okay, yeah, we're starting to look at this technology more effectively. Hey, this is how we're implementing it. And so a year ago, 2 years ago, I think we were firmly in hype land for most of AI tech in the AEC industry more broadly. And I think that's changed dramatically in the last year in particular, which is an exciting moment. But I'd like to step past technology for a second because you've written a couple children's books, which is very cool and interesting. I have them right here.
Yeah.
So I'm going to dig these out and I'll hand you one of these. So So yeah, we have two children's
QVC,
books here.
like $29.99.
Yeah, which is
Email me, I'll give you a copy.
this is a digital builder first.
Yeah.
And so I'd like to hear first off what drove you to writing these. Were you the author on both of these?
Yeah.
And like, how did these come to life? Tell me about them.
Yeah, it's a great question. Yeah, so I wrote both of these. I have a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, and we wrote the first of these I think when my son was 4. And when people ask me what I do, I always just say I'm a software engineer. That's what I trained in. And I told my son I'm an engineer, and he gave me this look. He was like, "No, you're not. Like I've never seen you drive a train. There's no way you're an engineer. You've never driven a train." And I was like, "All right."
When I was a kid, I wanted to be a train driver, actually. So that's an interesting overlap there from my youth.
Well, if you'd taken that path untaken, then you could show my son, and he would love to follow you around on the train. And something clicked there where I wanted to be seen in a way, and it clicked with something that we had heard from many of our users at work, many of our customers and partners, where I know you want to move on from technology, but I was talking to this guy, Preston at Haskell Builders in or Jacksonville, Florida, said this just a week ago to me, where the work of pre-con is invisible, and if you can elevate it and make it visible, then it's valued, and that brings like a warmth to the day of the people who do this really hard work. That to work this hard for a team that doesn't understand what you do and so might not value it or the effort that goes into it can be this like disheartening thing. But to be seen and understood, it's this really amazing thing for people. And I was like, oh, if I have this problem with my son and our customers have this problem with their customers, with owners, with clients, they probably have the same problem with their families. And honestly, they could probably use the same thing to explain it to an owner, to a developer. And so, yeah, we looked around, and there are all these great children's books about architects, and there are all these great children's books about construction sites and all the machines. We said, hey, there's this other wedge here. Yeah. There's this like wedge of planning and pulling it together, taking the dream and turning it into something that can actually be built that is really important in the industry and is not seen in the same way. And so we said, okay, we'll write this book. And so we wrote it, we drew it up, and if anyone wants a copy of it, you can email me. And so the other one followed a very similar thing, but from the developer or facilities manager lens. We're here in the Bay Area. Developer is not necessarily a polite word, shall we say, but the amount of energy that has to happen to look out and see a piece of land that's empty or that could be redeveloped, and to imagine what it could be, and then to bend that universe like sort of to that vision, just the number of things, the number of steps, the number of hurdles you have to go through. Like, it's a miracle anything gets built. I don't know that I could. We thought that effort also deserved, to be seen and understood by a slightly larger audience. And so
I love it. I think the genesis of that does make a lot of sense. And it's a cool path that you've taken to putting these together. To be honest, your comment about the helping your family understand your job, I need a book that helps explain that too, because I talk to my mom, and I still try to be like, yeah, I work in marketing, I'm going to do these things. And I don't get it. I'm like, well, that's okay. But it's a challenging problem for folks. And I think just the visibility this offers the construction industry more broadly is really important for a long-term conversation as well, because we have a lot of work to do to fill all the seats that are going to be needed in the next 5 to 10 years in this space and beyond. I mean, right now we're still struggling with the labor challenges. So
and they're not going away.
Yeah,
like there are a lot of 7-year-olds who like put their hand up to work at the train or put their hand up to be an architect. Like, why aren't there 7-year-olds who put their hand up and say, I want to be an estimator, I want to work in pre-con? Yeah, we think they should, because we need the roles filled, and they're impactful, important roles that deliver a ton of value and can be a lot of fun along the way.
I love it. So I've got one more question for you today. I ask everybody this: what's one tool that you use on every project you work on, no matter what you're working on?
Kant wouldn't like this, because people are supposed to be an end to themselves, but I think it's probably honestly my family and friends. I don't know if I'd get anywhere without the ability to bounce things off my wife and my friends. And I think that's sort of a resource of support that you can go back to and challenge your thinking with, sort of no matter what the project and no matter what a project throws at you. And so that's my tool on anything. And sorry, Hannah.
No, I like it though. It's an aspect of community in the support that you have in the goals and the vision that you bring to your work and anything that's not tied to work. I think it's a great answer. I don't think we've had that one in over 130 episodes
Wow.
of Digital Builder, but I really like it. So thank you. And Andrew, again, just thank you for joining me on Digital Builder today. This has been an absolutely pleasure learning more about your organization and your perspective on pre-construction in particular. I think there's a lot to be encouraged and excited by within the realm of the pre-construction world, and I appreciate you spending some time sharing your perspective.
Great. Thank you so much, Eric.
For everybody out there listening, of course, I'm Eric Thomas, host of Digital Builder. If you want to ask me any questions or reach out, of course, I'm the only Eric Thomas that works at Autodesk, so I'm not hard to find on LinkedIn or otherwise. We are YouTube first, so if you're listening to this on audio, thank you so much. But if you want to see what the beautiful space looks like that we're filming here in San Francisco, make sure you head over to the YouTube channel and take a peek. Otherwise, until next time, goodbye.